So, to decide our good pairs, we decided to think about the future offspring, not just the next generation, but the future of the farm. So what we did was we averaged out the factors. So like we put like a pretty good one with a maybe not so good one to balance it out. So not just the next generation, but the future of the farm will be able to have pretty good.
We just want to improve on the generations and not just improve on like one alpaca and then have a group of good ones and a group of like bad ones.
So they all pretty much are pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, so our first was Zen and Cleopatra. Zen was the better out of the two, so he's gonna help balance out Cleopatra's traits. Okay, so Zen's standard deviation was a lot closer to 5, and his uniformity of micron, luster, and fineness were really good. They were closer to 5 compared to Cleopatra's. We also paired them because he has medullated fibers while she doesn't, so that's in hopes that the medullated fibers will decrease or eliminate. And then his fibers greater than 30 were a lot closer to 0 than hers were, so we wanted to pair them to balance that out. And then they're both fairly young, and the color should turn out on the lighter side, so I think it would help with the dye process if you were looking for the color of the alpaca. And then our second pair was Arrow and Bethany. They were actually fairly similar with their standard deviation and stuff. Their main difference was their medullated fibers. So as you can tell, their standard deviations are fairly close. Obviously Bethany's is a lot closer to 5, but Arrow's uniformity of micron and luster are better than Bethany's, but Bethany's fineness will help bring one of Arrow's up. And then same thing, Arrow doesn't have medullated fibers while Bethany does. And she has so few that we're hoping that they won't have any at all. And then the fibers greater than 30 may decrease a little bit, but I bet it'll stay about the same. And then with Bethany, she's obviously a lot younger than Arrow is, which will be helpful since she'll be the one carrying the baby. But I'm kind of interested to see how the color of the offspring will come off, since Arrow's quite a bit darker than Bethany. But I think if the offspring could help, because you could continue to make it lighter or make it dark again.
So the next good pair was Sundance and Sansa. We chose them because Sundance had a higher standard deviation and Sansa had no medullated fibers. But Sansa does have a high fiber quality and medullated fibers. Obviously, you can see Sundance's standard deviation is a lot higher than Sansa's, so we're hoping that will somehow lower in between that. And Sansa also has a lot better luster and fitness than Sundance, so we're hoping that will raise the next offspring. Then both of them are pretty young. Sansa's a year older, obviously. The color, they're also going to be on the lighter side because one is light gray and one is white. Then Torpedo and Milano. They both have pretty similar standard deviation. They're both low fitness compared, or Milano, sorry, has a low fitness compared to Torpedo, and Milano has no medullated fibers compared to Torpedo. Obviously, you can see they're pretty much the same standard deviation, which is pretty good. And they both, Torpedo has a little bit better fineness, but hopefully it will equal out, or the offspring will equal out compared to Milano. And they both, AFD is under 30. This is going to be another interesting color because one is completely black, and one is completely white. So it'll probably be in a grayish color.
Okay, so this is Tikanui and White Gold. And we did White Gold with Tikanui because he has low medullated fibers, but White Gold doesn't. And White Gold also has a lower standard deviation too. So we did Tikanui. Tikanui has a standard deviation of 6.6 and white gold has a standard deviation of 5.5. And overall we hope to balance that standard deviation out so it's closer to 5. And their modulated fibers overall are pretty low. It will probably stay the same as generations go on. And their luster and fineness are, well, Tikanui's is phenomenal, but his luster may increase white gold's or balance it out. They're both relatively young, but you'll probably end up with a white alpaca.
Probably.
Yes.
Okay, so this is our bad pair. So Sundance and Cleopatra both have a very high standard deviation, low fiber quality, but it's also important to know that they both have the same dad. So you probably don't really want to do that. They're both very high. Like these are nowhere near five microns, and their uniformity is both high, and their fibers greater than 30, and their luster. It will most likely never balance out to make a good offspring. So, yeah. So like I mentioned, they both have the same dad, and they're both relatively the same color. So.